Hello everyone, hope all of you are doing good. So today we have one part of democracy, classical and contemporary democracy, and obviously the human rights part which has been left from the rights. So today we will be discussing these two themes, okay? I hope all of you are writing continuously. In day 10, we will deal on key questions pertaining to democracy also, fine? So let's start with today's question. We have studied what are the sub-components that have to be studied in rights in day 9, all right? So we will not discuss them again. And in democracy, in day 10, we will be doing in detail what all aspects have to be covered, okay? Chalo. So let's start day 9 now. So what is the question? Very simple question, right? Question is asking, what are human rights? The concept of human rights, okay? Now, discuss Will Kymlicka's views on human rights. So, in this particular question, which is talking of human rights and Will Kymlicka's view. Okay? So, tell me one thing, are we going to write all the 3 generations of rights? Firstly, let's understand what is the concept of human rights. Okay, by the virtue of being human, okay, the universal, permanent, inalienable rights that are given to human, okay, these are human rights. And which is the source of these human rights? Okay, it is the UDHR which is the source of these human rights, all right? Now, so we have to actually make a link between these two aspects. So how is human rights linked with Will Kymlicka? How is the concept of human rights linked with Will Kymlicka? Okay. So we say that human rights has passed through generations, and the 3rd generation rights talk about cultural rights, group rights, developmental rights of people. The first was civil and political rights, the second was socio-economic rights, and the 3rd generation of human rights talk about what? Cultural and developmental rights of people. All right? So yes, it is inspired that way by multiculturalism as a philosophy, okay, as an ideology as well. Fine. Now we say, after explaining the concept of human rights and explaining the source, we say that yes, 3rd generation. Then we say, in this context, minority rights and their recognition has become a key debate, because otherwise democracy will be reduced to majoritarianism. Okay? And in this regard, it is very vital to protect the minority rights. Okay? But why are we talking of this minority rights in this context? Why? Because liberalism has faced challenges. Okay? They are the ones who were also the key propagators that way of this concept. So yes, liberalism has faced criticism from communitarianism, okay, they have faced criticism from Asian values, they have faced criticism from postmodernism, they have also faced criticism from feminism. So all schools, Marxist, okay, yes. So many schools have criticized liberalism, okay, because liberalism emphasis has been on what? Liberalism's essential emphasis has been individualism. That is the key and core theme also we know of liberalism. And because it emphasizes on this individualism, it is unable to emphasize on group rights, community rights, okay, of people. So that relationship between individual and society has not been incorporated so well in liberalism. Even communitarians criticize liberalism on that ground, that you have made man as atomistic man, but man is embedded self, okay, right? It is not a, man is not, you know, on his own. The social circumstances, culture, everything influences a person. So because liberalism has faced this kind of a challenge, what is Will Kymlicka trying to do? Will Kymlicka is saying that within liberalism also there can be reconciliation. There can be what? Reconciliation. So the third para, first para is human rights, then we will be talking of the source of human rights. Third generation rights, what is the emphasis on this third generation rights? How there is emphasis to recognize minority rights, because liberalism has this problem. And Will Kimlicka says that even there can be reconciliation in liberalism between individual as well as society. Because what is the aim of individual's life? The aim of individual's life is freedom, and we want to ensure equality in society. It is in this regard that even liberalism can reconcile liberty, freedom, and equality. In this regard, he is talking of minority rights. But here is a catch, okay? So when he talks of this minority rights which has to be there, so he says that minority rights should be there, okay? And minority rights reduce inequalities, okay? It is very important. It will bridge these inequalities that exist within society. But he talks of, this in a very different manner. So one, he talks of the national minorities which are existing within a country or a state, because either this, for example, how USA became, different states, how they came together, okay? And in this, there are also some groups which have become reduced to minorities. So he calls this group, okay, he calls them as national minorities. And he says that the rights for these national minorities should not be temporary. We should not make any temporary arrangement, but within the constitution, there should be permanent rights that have to be ensured for these national minorities and protect them, okay? So for whatever factor they have been reduced to a minority group, it is very, very important that liberal democratic states protect these rights. But now the catch is, then he says there are other groups also who are minorities. So he says the immigrants, and yes, look at how he will classify. So for them, it should be permanent, not temporary rights, national minorities, okay? And these, there is also self-development, self-preservation, self-government rights actually, I would say, for these national minorities, self-government rights. So we can do devolution and other things to protect these national. But immigrants have chosen inequality. It is a voluntary inequality. So he says there can be the element of fairness we can bring, where we can allow them to practice their own culture within what? Within a majority tradition. So one is this majority tradition that is happening in any country. So for example, Americans, okay? Now for example, black Americans, okay? These people are reduced, for example, to a minority there. And then there is immigrants. There are Indians who are going there for work. So how will Kimlicka place them? These people will get national minority status. They will get permanent rights, no temporary rights. They'll get self-government rights. But these immigrants who are there and they become minority, for them there should not be self-government rights. For them, only on the principle of some fairness, we can have what? The protections of their culture can be ensured. But we cannot treat them same like the national minorities. Okay? So even if he is seeking to reconcile the relationship between man and society, he is not able to do that to a very large extent, okay? Because yes, again, he is making this kind of a distinction. But who opposes this view of Will Kimlicka? Bhikkhu Parekh. He says, he is presenting that no, even these immigrants should be given rights, okay? they should also be recognized. Is it clear? Let's just recap so that some people would have not studied. So first we are talking of what is human right, what is the source of human rights. We move to the connecting link between this. We move to third generation, that is collective developmental and cultural rights. Okay. Then we talk about the recognition of minority rights become a key debate in this context, and how liberal theory has been criticized for not being able to, because it has been largely based on utilitarian principle in that manner. Okay. Then Will Kimlicka's work, very important, note this work. Okay. Multicultural citizenship, a liberal theory of minority rights. What is he calling it? Liberal theory of minority rights, where he proposes what? Minority rights in the multicultural context of the West. Okay. So he says even within liberalism we can reconcile the relationship between individual and society. Okay. Then in dealing with minority rights, he distinguishes between two types of groups. One is national minorities, and second is the ethnic groups, which are actually the immigrants who are coming. All right. So how are the national minorities? All right. And then what should be the right for them? And then he talks of these polyethnic rights. Okay. Right. So which means you are allowing them to express their cultural differences, and that too with pride. It will be incorporated. There will be principle of fairness, but you cannot enjoy permanent rights. You cannot enjoy self-government rights. Okay, so there will not be great devolution of power in that sense for you to do administrative, executive, legislative decisions. Okay, at the local level. Fine. So yes, he defend group right, but not for everybody. And he's, yes, trying to move towards equality. So yes, the context for deepening of rights continue. Fine. Now let's move towards the next question. Critically examine C.B. Macpherson's views on democracy. So it's a past year question. Okay. A student ignores sometimes these topics, classical democracy, contemporary theories and other things. So you should know. Now let's see what is the idea of Macpherson. How we will start. So Macpherson is what? Okay. Now Macpherson is talking of this ideal democracy that he seeks to establish. Is it clear? Ideal democracy. And he is talking of this radical democracy. A radical democracy, which means he is actually combining the elements of both procedural aspects as well as what? Substantive aspect. We should not make democracy merely procedural like it is there, but we should have both substantive as well as procedural aspect of democracy that has to be done. Now, fine. So what is his problem? Okay, so Macpherson says that the elitist theory of democracy, okay, so Schumpeter, Dahl axis and the pluralist, they have actually reduced democracy to a market. So everything is gaining votes, okay, and reduced everything to acquire power. So he says, as democracy has evolved in the West, fine, as it has evolved in the West, but does not mean that West has the only title to talk about democracy. So only Western liberal democracy is the true form or ideal form of democracy? No. So he says that there are three kinds of problems in all kind of systems which can be changed. If these are changed, then even they can be called as democracies. Okay. Now let's just examine what are the three problems he is talking of. Okay. So he says that the liberal democracy needs a more human touch. That's why he says even substantive aspect. He says communist countries should have more intra-party democracy, and third world countries, okay, right, these governments should have governance in such a way that they enjoy more legitimacy, because we see that there is a lot of instability within the regimes in the third world countries, developing countries. So he says there are three variants of democracies, means the existing systems can be improved and they also can be called a democracy if they are, okay, the issues within them are addressed. Not only the liberal West should be called as democracy. And then he criticizes also whom, okay, Schumpeter Dahl Axis in his which work, which is very important, it is the Democratic Theory Essays in Retrieval. So he talks about this. And then he says that how he brings, so first he is also correcting the procedures in these systems and how to bring in the substantive aspect of democracy. So he says there are two types of powers. One is the extractive power, where you use where you use others as a means to achieve your own ends, okay? Which means this is what a market-based democratic system, which has reduced democracy only to gainers, voters, fine, then it is a problem. So he says one is an extractive power, which makes you use others for achieving your ends. And the other he talks of is the developmental power, which means you will be doing things on your own to achieve your ends. So he says the substantive aspect of democracy has to emphasize on this developmental power and not extractive power, which has started to happening in liberal democracies in the West. So he says that he wants to establish the radical theory, he wants to establish an ideal theory of democracy where he will be able to, right, link both the substantive as well as the what? Procedural aspect. And his major criticism is against whom? Against the elitist theorist and the pluralist theorist, okay? Because both have reduced democracy to a market mechanism. Fine? So let's just recap. So he criticizes this elitist pluralist theories. Fine? And he gives in it a more humanist version. So he's saying that we should move from this extractive power to more developmental power, all right? But yes, to what extent this ideal version can be realized in real remains very much questionable. Is it clear? So one, Will Kimlicka's views on human rights, and second question was on C.B. Macpherson views on democracy. Practice the other questions of human rights also. You should know all the three generations of human rights, okay? You should know within the multicultural perspective the debate between Will Kimlicka and Bhikkhu Parekh, okay? What is the problem within liberalism? From universalism, we have to move towards what? Recognition of more differences, okay? All these aspects of human rights also you should explore. Asian values also, how they contribute, what is their view, fine? Okay? So, all the best for day 10 tomorrow. All the best. Take care.